Hello, this is Reverend Sam. Glad to be with you today in today's Uplift, and I'd like to start us with prayer. So just close, if you're somewhere where you can close your eyes, that would be great, or if not, just take a deep breath and relax with me, and we'll just go in deep to within and say together, release and let go. And just know that right here and right now, we are in the midst of love. We are in the midst of Spirit. We are in the midst of the light. And just know that in this place, there is only relaxation. There is only letting go. There is only grace. And so what I know for today is that we are here together to experience the divine. We are here to experience letting go. We are here to experience understanding and inquiry and holding together from that space of heart, from that space of love, from that space of inner knowing and understanding that it is that vision that from within each one of us that calls us together today, allowing that growing space of Spirit's vision opening wide to the call before us to experience an even greater life than we have ever known before. And so I know that for each one of you, for myself, and for all of those around us today as we call forward the experience of love and divinity in all that we do. And so giving thanks for it, I simply let it be now, and so it is. And so like I said, I'm glad to be with you today, and I'm excited about what I'm going to be talking about and what we'll share together today. I want to talk about imagination, the idea of imagination. The idea came into my mind a few days ago, about a week ago actually, and I just started thinking about the idea of imagination, and I realized that I imagine things all the time. Think about how many different aspects to imagination there are. I mean, sometimes we consider it daydreaming. Other times we consider it fantasy. Other times we consider it creativity, or we might consider it a new idea, or we might consider it visualization or imagery. And all of these things we can boil it down to the idea of imagination. It's a real tool of humanity, of being human, that we use all the time. And it's really that idea of imagination that is it's a great tool, an experience, an aspect of ourselves that when you think about it and when you really consider the idea of imagination, it's a fantastic part of something that we do all the time. And so I started thinking about this, and I realized that sometimes it can be really enjoyable to just imagine myself being somewhere else, or doing something larger than what I've ever done before, or moving through life in a way either the same as what I'm doing now and just adding to it, or maybe being in somewhere completely different than where I've been before. But what I realized is imagination is the first step in the creative process. So if you think about it, in the physical world, imagination or an idea is always the first step in creating something new. So Albert Einstein says this. He says, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, simulating progress and giving birth to evolution. And so that was Albert Einstein. And so if you think about it, whoever invented airplanes imagined an airplane before it happened. Whoever invented a mobile phone imagined a mobile phone before it actually happened. Whoever invented the internet imagined the internet before it happened. And so all these people, whoever they were, had this idea of these things before they actually happened. And so as I started thinking about all of these different things, I just realized how much creativity goes into all of these ideas that happen before they happen. They happen inside the mind, inside the consciousness, before they come into form. And so all of these things that I've been talking about so far are things that happen in the physical world, manifestations that happen in the physical world. But imagination also creates experiences too. So I might, for example, imagine a vacation. So I imagine myself in Spain, for example. So I imagine an experience in Madrid where I go on a vacation with my family or a friend or maybe by myself, and I imagine myself going to a bullfight. Or I imagine myself walking the streets of London. Or I imagine myself going to New York to a Broadway show. But see, it all starts with an idea. So it starts with imagining what the city's like, imagining what I'm doing, who I'm with, how it feels, all these things. Or I go visit, imagine going to my family. All of it starts with these ideas, with these pictures that are formed in our mind. What the temperature is, all of these different things. And so expanding on this even further, what I've been talking about so far are positive things, all right? Also, too, to think about the negative side of these ideas is that you can also imagine negative experiences, and these also outpicture. If I imagine a negative idea, these also are created as well. So generally, these negative types of experiences come from fear. For example, if I'm afraid to take a test, I imagine myself failing the test. That tends to be what happens. So if I'm afraid of being sick, I imagine myself being sick, and I tend to be sick. Okay? So, like I said, imagination is the first step in the creation process. And it works in both directions, positive and negative. So, what I want to tell you right now is how this idea came to me. It's kind of funny. It's the season of New Year's resolutions, right? And so I've been thinking about that, and it's the third week of January. At least that's when the talks the uplifts that I usually do play, the third week of January, and so that's the third week of New Year's resolutions, and so it's kind of when New Year's resolutions start to be a little bit challenging, and a lot of times, at least for me, that's when I start to fall off of them and decide maybe this isn't the right, maybe I won't do this anymore. So anyway, that's what got me thinking about this imagination kind of thing. And so, I've done all kinds of resolutions over the years. I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to exercise less, I'm going to eat more, I'm going to eat less. I'm going to be more social. I'm going to be less social. I'm going to increase my spiritual practice. I'm going to call my sister more. I'm going to connect with people. All these different kinds of things. So, I hear all the different things that you hear about. I think I've tried all of them for New Year's resolutions. So, this started me thinking about imagination. But I remember there was one time, and this was really a spark of my life. It really changed my life. Excuse me. But it was one of the years that I had exercise as one of my resolutions. And so I was working with a trainer, and I asked him, how can I make this work? I've done this before. I've had exercise more as one of my resolutions. How can I make this work? And you know what he said to me? He goes, one of the intention that you have to set for yourself, one that many people use, is I need to be motivated. And he goes, that is not that intention is not the one that will work. If you use the idea of motivation by week 3, which I just told you that we would be in, the week 3 of January, motivation dies after a short while. The idea of motivation, what is needed What is needed is diligence and persistence. Diligence and persistence. So, that just really stuck with me because and I realized that motivation, I'm really motivated at the beginning of the month to do whatever it is that I'm wanting to do. But if I'm diligent about it and I'm persistent about whatever it is, I'll keep doing it, right? So if I'm diligent about my new eating habits, or if I'm diligent about doing something more or less, I'll likely to keep doing it. So these are the qualities that I wanted to cultivate for my resolutions. And, I did this especially that year, and, it really helped me. It really helped me. So, and then I thought, and perhaps even more importantly, I used this concept of imagination. And I started to imagine that I was successful. I imagined that I was successful in my resolution. So I imagined that I was successful before I finished. So at the very beginning, on January 1st, I imagined that I was successful in my new eating habits, or I imagined I was successful in creating this new habit of exercise. I imagined I was successful before the time period and the act was even complete. I imagined it was already done. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I imagined it was already done. So I'm saying that with a smile on my face, and do you recognize it? Does it sound familiar to anybody? Because that is a basic principle of science of mind and spirit, imagining it's already done. So I love that it kind of fell into that, because it brought me back to that very simple science of mind principle: imagine that it's already done and let it go. And just start taking the steps, walking the talk. Okay? So that's what I did, and that's what I do. Is I start the resolution, I imagine it's already done, and I take the steps to create it, and everything around supports me in getting it done. So that's the beginning of the creative process. I imagine it, and then I start I know that it's done, I start taking the steps to make it happen. Okay? So we've been talking about all of these different ideas and these kind of external manifestations. And so now I want to move to some more spiritual ideas about these things. Okay? So, and we started to move into that just a little bit with imagining that something is complete before it's done. And as we move even further into the spiritual aspects of these ideas, it's the same tools. It's the same tools that we were talking about just a second ago. And the difference is adding the aspect of, how do I want to say this? Adding the aspect of faith to it. Okay? And adding the aspect of co-creation with it, knowing that the universe will always support us, that our own divinity will always support us in these ideas of creation. So, so that we co-create with the universe based on our thoughts and our imagination, and the creation the creation always happens. And so Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind and Spirit, says we should couple imagination with faith. We should believe that the answer to all our problems already exists in the divine mind, and we should act as though this were true. So this was like I was just telling you before, we should act as though this were true. And so that's where we always start at the beginning of a creative process, is acting as though this were true. So if we couple imagination with faith, we know it is true before it is even visible before we can even see it in the visible world. And this is what supports the universe with spirit, with our hearts, with all of these things together in creating the experience of whatever it is that we're knowing in the world, visually in our experience. This is trusting the nature of the creative nature in the universe. This is what faith is. And so I want to give you an example of this, just a quick example, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about from my own life. And it's with my job. And so I'm in a job that I wasn't quite sure of the future of this job, even though it was a company that I loved, and I just wasn't sure what was going to happen with it, because it seemed like it was becoming unimportant, not really attached to anything, and while I felt safe with the company, I didn't know what would happen with this specific job. And so what I did is I just did some prayer work about it, and I just knew, and I just did some creative prayer work, knowing a fulfilling job for myself, something that I got some knowledge about, and that I could learn new things, and that that was easy to adjust to, and that I had good teachers, okay? And so then I did this prayer, I released it, and I started moving my feet toward getting it done. And so I listened around to hear what was happening, to let others, to hear what kind of movement was happening in my company, so I know what was available and that sort of thing. And then I just waited. I waited until I did the job that I had to the best of my ability, and I listened to what was happening in other parts of the company. And in about, I would say it took, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, there was an opening in my same department for a job that I had never done before, that I had never imagined myself doing before, but that was open and that was at the same pay that I had before. I applied for it and I got it, and that's what I'm doing right now. And so that's what I mean about the creative process, is that my prayer was for qualities and not the specifics. I had emotion behind it because I was excited about it, and I released it knowing it was already done before it even happened. And then I let it go and I waited. Okay? And so these are the qualities that help to make a prayer successful. Okay? So that's the example I have for you from my life. And so I want to add another quality to the ideas of prayer work and creativity, and that is to add excitement and emotion to your prayer work. I found a quote, and the author is, I don't know who the author is, but I just saw this online, and I want to read it to you because it's really powerful, and it says exactly what I just told you. When imagination and excitement are mixed together, you will either notice obstacles are removed or they will be largely diminished, and therefore your courage will increase. And so, in other words, what happens is your passion increases, okay? The emotion behind the words increases, and therefore manifestation is complete and more powerful. And it's when the emotion is given behind the words that the manifestation is fulfilled completely, quickly, fully, more awesomely. I don't think that's words, but in a terrific kind of a way that you're really excited about. The stronger you believe, the stronger the belief is, the more quickly and more fully it is done. And it comes with a sense of awe, you know. It's like with my new job, I was just awestruck by how that happened in such a synchronistic way and that sort of thing. So I encourage you to try these ideas, to try some daydreaming, try some imagining, try some prayer with directed intention, with faith, because it really works. It really, really works. And so, excuse me. So for this year's New Year's resolutions, cultivate diligence and persistence, like I was mentioning. Know they are already complete, that you're satisfied. Have faith in yourself, because you know what? You are already perfect, just like you are. Thank you. And so let's close in prayer, and just very quickly, just know that indeed you are already perfect. I am already perfect, because Spirit is perfect. And that we are here together knowing and learning about this creativity that allows our imagination, our connection with the divine, and that inner knowing to be that creative experience of life. That creative knowing will expand to increase and allow that heart's desire in each of us